Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is the Ukraine War News Update, first part thereof for the 20th of August 2024. I don't know what day I've been doing, I don't know what day it is. I've just got back to the UK and I am suitably unimpressed with the dull and dreary day that I am faced with out there. Having to put lights on in front of me to make myself seen to you rather than sitting in bright sunlight and having to close the curtains because it's too bright in a hotel room in a far-flung land. So I'm back, whoop-de-doo. I'm exhausted. I've had about 1.5 hours sleep in 24 hours, but you know, hey-ho. Let's get on with where we normally start. Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply. You can find them in the description to the video below. Okay, we have 1,330 personnel lost. That's an incredibly high number. The upper end of the range that we've seen recently. Yes, there has been some anomalous days that stretched to 1,740, wasn't it, one day? Back in the last few months or so, but 1,330 is definitely the upper end of the usual range that we see. 5 tanks is where we've seen the last few days. 26 troop carrying AFVs, armored personnel carriers, infantry fighting vehicles, MRAPs, so on and so forth. 26 is above average, and 52 artillery systems is about 3 times the daily average there. 1 multiple launch rocket system and 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, obviously useful there, and then some insanely high numbers in these two last categories. 95 vehicles and fuel tanks, 22 pieces of special equipment. There's some records there, that's for sure. I need to check out Dell's stats again, share them with you. But those are huge, and I think that suggests that the Ukrainians are hitting Russian logistics probably behind the Kursk lines, as well as special equipment. Well, either of those could include all sorts. I think there are excavators that are going to be hitting Kursk. I think there are golf buggies that are being hit up and down the front. I've seen some footage of a golf buggy being hit 17 kilometers behind the contact line by a Ukrainian drone. That's probably somewhere in the east, but yeah, there is that's a lot of losses there in those categories. Andrew Perpetua has well, let's have a look at his loss list. And I expect if you see sort of 95 on a day like today, it might take a day or two for some of that video footage to come out and feature on the Andrew Perpetua loss lists. So there will be a lag for that. But anyway, here we have almost parity. Both sides losing a lot of surveillance and comms equipment. In terms of combat asset losses, it's probably 1-to-1 there. No artillery for the Ukrainians, a few pieces of artillery for the Russians, and the Ukrainians probably losing more infantry fighting vehicles, APCs and whatnot than the Russians there. Okay, let's look at the Ukrainian losses. Some Starlinks, a Plaston RP3000 surveillance comms equipment, and other generic comms equipment there lost as well. So a lot of articles in that category. Engineering vehicle, and then 4 tanks of varying types, 3/4 of them damaged. That's a good stat there. Infantry fighting vehicles, we have 8, and 2 of them damaged. So that's not a great proportion and not a great ratio in that category that we normally see. We normally see a better ratio there for damage to destroyed or abandoned or captured for the Ukrainians. Luckily, most of those are BMP-1s. Only one of those is a Bradley, and that's unusual. We've seen mainly Western equipment lost in this category recently. So to see mainly BMP-1s and 2s is, I think, I don't know, I guess that's good. It's better than losing your better equipment. It doesn't mean that they are not using better equipment, though. Anyway, APCs, 2 out of 3 are captured or destroyed, leaving an M113 damaged. You've got a captured Humvee and a destroyed Humvee. MRAPs, we've got 100% of these have been destroyed or abandoned. So where we have seen some fairly good ratios, as I said before, in these categories of damage to destroyed, the Ukrainians have really had a lot destroyed proportionally there. And then the rest is civilian vehicles going down to decoys and unknown civilian vehicles by the looks of it at the bottom. I think that's why they are listed at the bottom, those ones. When we go to the Russian equipment, and some electronic warfare equipment, lost a lot of surveillance and comms equipment. And then when we come down to artillery, there is quite a few pieces of artillery here for the Russians to have lost. 240 millimeter self-propelled mortar, a couple of BM-21 Grads there, multiple launch rocket systems, one destroyed, one damaged, and then other various other artillery pieces. We have a captured tank. Another T-90M has been captured. We've got video evidence of that. 3 other tanks destroyed, and then so that's 50% destroyed or captured against damaged. So 8 tanks lost there. Infantry fighting vehicles, 3 out of 5 destroyed. BMP 2s and 3s, BTRs there, and then some APCs and MRAPs variously destroyed, abandoned, or damaged. So yeah, quite a few quite a few trucks and civilian vehicles as well. Most of the civilian vehicles destroyed. So the Ukrainians doing okay, I suggest. The Russians losing quite a few more logistics vehicles than the Russians losing more logistics vehicles than the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians suffering slightly more combat asset losses, I think, than the Russians. Okay, moving on, we see a T-90M that was apparently in pretty good nick, being captured here and towed. So that's probably one we'll see being used by the Ukrainians again, as we have seen previously in Kursk with the other T-90M that was captured. Tim White reports, so a few people reporting on this, Russia released a video like this. They release videos like this most days of the war, but it's very unusual for Ukraine to publish this. Air Force Commander Mykola Oleschuk showed how a fighter jet hits what he says was an underground enemy control point. So it's interesting footage here. You've got burning areas of ground that appear to be, well, I mean, the implication here is that what's damaged is underground here. Anyway, that's been hit with a guided glide bomb, the AASM Hammer, the French guided glide bomb that the Ukrainians are using quite a lot at the moment. Okay, not too much footage elsewise to show with you. We'll go on to strikes, and it was a fairly significant night of attacks last night, by point of fact that one entity was here and has caused an awful lot of damage. Okay, so in total there were 25 out of 26 Shahed attack drones shot down, so another really good day of interception for these attack drones. The Russians losing most of them on most nights. 2 out of 2 Kh-59 cruise missiles, 1 out of 1 Iskander-K cruise missile, and then 0 out of 2, either they are Iskander-M or KN-23 ballistic missiles, the North Korean provided ones. Unsure as to what they were, and it's probably these two that have done the damage to Ternopil. So unfortunately, one target Russia successfully hit was in Ternopil, in the west of Ukraine, and there was a massive explosion in Ternopil about a year and a half ago, or I can't remember when. Something large was struck then, and here we have another huge explosion there and fire, rather similar to what we've seen Ukraine do to Russia relatively frequently. A fuel tank is burning after a strike on an industrial facility. Residents are advised to shut doors and windows as the thick smoke hovers over the city. So this is, not a good look for Ternopil. Ternopil has taken a bit of a hammering there from one of those missiles, or 2 of those missiles. Industrial facilities mentioned. We hear as well chemical. So here the State Emergency Situation Service has published footage of the elimination of the fire in Ternopil. There's some pretty hardcore fire there, causing quite a lot of damage. And it strikes me as I have actually expected more of this to have taken place from the Russians. So the Ukrainians have been hammering the Russian hydrocarbons infrastructure, taking out oil depots and refineries quite frequently. And the Russians have probably not done that enough to the Ukrainians. I don't want to put ideas in their head, but they when they do hit them, this really hurts. We had Kharkiv was hit some time back, and you had some oil depots taken out there. But I guess this is a reaction to what's happened over the last couple of days, and I'll show you that in a second. And possibly reaction to Kursk, maybe bit of retaliation, but this is arguably more sensible striking from the Russians. I'm just surprised they've not done more of that. They've also been seemingly getting revenge on Kursk by hitting Sumy, which is the oblast, the Ukrainian oblast to the south of the Kursk oblast. Sumy continues to be battered by Russia, no doubt as retaliation for Kursk, says Tim White. Overnight, they hit energy facilities in Kharkiv, meaning almost 20,000 subscribers have no power. Shelling is widespread in the region each day, with some examples of wanton destruction shown in these photos. Just a lot of shelling taking place into Sumy, unfortunately. Now, Tim White then makes a point of mentioning the oil depot in Rostov that is still burning. So this is now 3 nights and further. One of the most popular replies and memes I get is, "I see Russia burning, I press like." Well, I'm happy to oblige again. Over 2 days since Dr. One paid a house call to the Proletarsk oil depot in Rostov region, it's still burning nicely. 500 plus firefighters are there. And actually, it's been going on longer now. And the fire is absolutely horrendous. A few more details emerging from Rostov, says Tim a little later here. And that fire at the oil depot at Proletarsk. Sources in Russia now say 22 out of the 70 fuel tanks are either in flames or already burned down. The place is still expanding, now covering 1,500 square meters. Well, I've now heard it's 10,000 square meters. So, and goodness knows how many of those tanks are gone. But why this is significant is quite often hits on these oil depots will take out 2 out of 8 tanks, 2 out of 12 tanks, 1 out of 10 tanks, right? And you think, well, that's good, jobs are good and done well here. Far, far more significant here. And the firefighters are really, really struggling. So Ilya Ponomarenko says, meanwhile, a large fuel depot in Russia's Proletarsk is still in flames days after a Ukrainian drone attack, and the situation is getting worse. This is easily the most effective Ukrainian attack on Russian oil industry ever in this war, and possibly why you've now seen Ternopil struck as a kind of retaliation. My feeling is that they won't bring the Grand Fire down until the entire facility is totally evaporated. We'll see. 10,000 square meters of inferno is the claim now. Chris Owicki says reportedly 41 firefighters have been injured while trying to extinguish this fire, 18 hospitalized, 5 in intensive care. Quote, the extinguishing has to be constantly suspended due to explosions of kerosene tanks. And this is really, really significant. And the sky, I mean, it's terribly sad environmentally. This is awful, but in terms of the war, this is exactly what Ukraine need. This is apparently a depot that was supplying the Russian army. 3 days of fire. Euromaidan Press says oil depot in Rostov Oblast, Russia is still ablaze following Ukraine's strike. So that is significant news still. First pontoon bridge is apparently gone from this same river in Kursk. So remember the same river that, if you imagine kind of a rectangle, like as Dom Nichol said on Ukraine Latest, a shoebox, where you've got, so if you're looking at me, you've got the right hand side is the Ukrainian advance from the east, right? And you've got the left hand side is, broadly speaking, Tekkino, the border. So you hemmed in there. The south is the border. So you've got Ukrainians here, south is the border, and west here is a border. And then along the top, you've got the same river. And they've blown 3 bridges along that river. And there's supposedly was this pontoon bridge that has, it depends. Some people are saying that the Ukrainians have blown it up, and there are reports that it has been blown up. but it might have been just taken down and attempted to be moved, or both. They might be trying to build it somewhere else as it got blown up. Someone here says, thanks to Defmon for pointing out that the strike on the engineering vehicle was located at green and not at red dot, as I thought. The satellite imagery shows a bridge at the red dot on the 18th of August, but it's missing on the 19th of August, with evidence of engineering work at the green spot. Russians likely moved the bridge to a better spot, or it was blown up and they're trying to build another one at a better spot. So we don't really know, but that the pontoon is gone is good news, because that means that that area to the south of that river is really in a lot of trouble. Now, this is an interesting photo from a German provided IRIS-T SLM. This is a medium range air defense system. The commander states that in 6 months they shot down 45 targets, and you can see that these are all missiles, not Shahed drones. So that's good that they're not using a higher value air defense system to take out lower value drones, that they're using lower tech to do that. But what's interesting about this, they shot down 45 targets with the help of 44 air defense missiles. If you see here, and German aid to Ukraine's talked about this, there's a double hit. Probably more luck than judgment, but my goodness, to have taken out 2 missiles with 1 air defense interceptor is pretty good going. So yeah, that is a really good success rate by the looks of it from this team there. Okay, moving on to other bits and pieces, not a crazy amount to discuss with you here. Says Tonya Levchuk, I've been talking daily with the Ukrainian soldiers who are currently in the Kursk region. They all share the same story. They're shocked by the extreme poverty they're seeing. Many homes don't even have running water, and the government buildings are in terrible condition. It's clear that this region is incredibly poor, a reality far removed from the image Russia tries to project. But this is just another reminder of the vast differences between our nations. There have been comments on this. The houses that some of the Russians are going around have been, that the Ukrainian soldiers are going around have been really quite ramshackle. And yeah, it does look like there is a fair bit of poverty in that region. Now, the Kyiv Independent reports that Kyiv is to launch a new body for countering Russian influence among Ukrainian diaspora. So these foreign Ukrainian communities that are targets for Russian disinformation, there needs to be something put in place to help those communities to battle disinformation. So Zelensky's dubbed the new planned body, quote, the Ministry of Ukrainian Unity and Countering Russian Influence on Ukrainians. Good luck to that. Disinformation is the scourge of modern life, I think. And Kyiv Independent again says a Russian soldier who defected to Ukraine conducted espionage and injured his commander. Ukraine's military intelligence agency, HUR, or sometimes called GUR, depending on how it's transcribed, revealed at the press conference on August 20th, attended by a Kyiv Independent reporter. Wow, so good activity there for the Ukrainians, getting Russians to defect, but also to get incredibly important intel and espionage done. Okay, finally, Euromaidan Press reports that Ukrainian forces control only 20% of Donetsk's New York settlement. Although I say only, the Russians claim that they had taken 100% of it, so I believe. UP military sources refute Russian reports on the fall of Donetsk's New York as Ukraine controls parts of the north, while the Russians advancing there are using large reserves. And it's this game of military chicken I keep talking about, where the Russians are advancing here, Ukrainians are advancing in Kursk. Who will crumble first? As you know, who will draw troops from one of these offensives to support defending the other offensive? So anyway, thank you for watching. I really appreciate your support. Thank you for being patient while I was away. Some of you were really, really kind in your generous support for me. Thanks for allowing me to inconsistently produce stuff, but hopefully it's still of use and informational. Take care, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.